For most composers, we assume their greatest works made them famous. With Bach, the opposite may be true. The pieces we now regard as some of the greatest achievements in Western music were often the works that attracted the least attention in his own lifetime. The Art of Fugue, the Musical Offering, the Goldberg Variations, even the Well-Tempered Clavier. Today, they're central to Bach's reputation. But during his lifetime, they occupied a surprisingly marginal place. To understand why, we need to step into Bach's world rather than our own. When Bach died in 1750, he was certainly respected, but not primarily as the composer we know today. As Christoph Wolff points out, Bach's reputation rested largely on his abilities as an organist, teacher, and master of counterpoint. People travelled considerable distances to hear him play. Students sought him out. Colleagues admired his technical mastery. But many of the works we now place at the centre of the canon remained surprisingly little known. Bach was famous, his music another matter. Nothing illustrates this better than the Art of Fugue. Today it's often treated as Bach's musical testament, a vast exploration of what can be achieved from a single theme. Yet it had no obvious practical purpose. It wasn't written for a church service, it wasn't written for a court, it wasn't designed to entertain a fashionable audience. In many ways it seems to stand apart from everyday musical life. When it appeared after Bach's death, it attracted only limited interest. The irony is striking. One of the most admired works in music history was barely noticed by the wider public. The Musical Offering tells a similar story. In 1747, Bach visited Frederick the Great. The king presented him with a theme and challenged him to improvise a fugue. Bach later transformed that encounter into one of the most extraordinary collections ever written. Canons, fugues, puzzles, musical riddles. John Butt observes that Bach's later works increasingly seem to pursue possibilities beyond immediate practical function. They're concerned with what music itself can do. The Musical Offering is a perfect example. It's dazzling, but it's also highly specialised. It wasn't the sort of music that filled churches or theatres. It was aimed at a small circle capable of appreciating its ingenuity. Today, the Goldberg Variations are among Bach's most famous works. They become a rite of passage for keyboard players. Yet there is little evidence they created much excitement when first published. No sensation, no wave of public enthusiasm, no sudden transformation of Bach's reputation. What listeners now hear as one of the supreme monuments of keyboard music was simply one publication among many. Its future importance was still invisible. Perhaps the most surprising example is the Well-Tempered Clavier. Today it underpins keyboard education across the world. Yet Bach never saw it published. It circulated mainly in manuscript copies. Students studied it, professional musicians admired it, but it wasn't a bestseller. The work that would shape generations of composers spread quietly from hand to hand. Its influence would come later, much later. There's a lesson here. We often assume greatness is immediately recognised. Bach's career suggests otherwise. The music that made him immortal wasn't necessarily the music that made him successful. Many of his most celebrated works existed on the margins of musical life. Some circulated only among specialists, some sold poorly, some remained unpublished. Yet these were the works that later generations would treasure most. The pieces that seemed least important to Bach's contemporaries became the foundations of his reputation. And perhaps that's one reason Bach still fascinates us. His greatest achievements weren't created to satisfy a market. They were created because he believed the musical journey was worth taking, whether the world was paying attention or not.